I was born in Syracuse, New York in 1929. My father loved animals, and he would take me for long walks in the woods and the grassy areas. We lift rocks, and there were little bugs there. And we'd talk about the bugs and the bees and the frogs and the ants and how they lived. So this was like an education. It didn't appear to be an education. It was just lots of fun. And he truly loved me. You know, this I realized much, much later. My father gave me very few gifts, but this gift of his was that he, Saturday morning, we automatically, Sunday morning, automatically go for long walks and talk with each other about all kinds of things. Through my books, I honor him even today. I don't know plants, I don't know the names of plants, but I knew I wanted a patch of red, I wanted a patch of blue, I wanted a little white, I wanted yellow. So it's all thought out in a way that I would design my illustrations, my collage illustrations, I think. My illustrations are collages. I start out with tissue paper. And for the first layer, for the background, I take a fat brush. I'm very stingy with the paints, I guess. I love color. And I have this one frustration that I cannot be even more colorful, that out the range of what our eye sees is so limited. You forget about the world. It's just you and this piece of paper and a brush and paint. And being intrigued by the wiggles and the dots and the colors and the brush strokes. Looking back, I had a very good mother. When I went into my room and drew pictures, you do not disturb Eric if he's in his room doing pictures. That was it. That was holy place to her. As far back as I can remember. Yeah. Drawing pictures was all of my love. And when my relatives came, my mother would pull out my drawings and have the people look at it. I started relatively late in my life doing picture books, books for children. I was my late 30s when I started out. One day I played with a hole puncher kind of innocently and just playfully, and I punched holes into a stack of paper, and I looked at the holes and I thought of a bookworm. The first version of The Very Hungry Caterpillar was A Week with Willie the Worm. And it was just the way it is today, except the ending was different. Willie Worm grows into a big, fat worm. And then I showed it to my editor, Anne Benedus, and she didn't like the worm so much. So we talked back and forth about other possible animals or bugs or something. And at one time she said, how about a caterpillar? And I said, butterfly. Making pictures, sitting down and starting the picture and And then it gets quieter and quieter, and then the world goes away, and you live in this world with colors and your brush, and you forget everything. It puts me in another world, and I'm all by myself. You know, with cats purr, I think that's the kind of state you are in. And this feeling I'm describing of this being closed off, at peace in another world, has always been the same for age, as far back as I can remember, 4, 5, 6, to this very time that I'm sitting here. It's easy. Anyone can do it. I can do it. You can do it. When we came to Germany, when I was 6 years old, my mother told me that for months on, I said, when are we going back to America? When are we going home again? Syracuse meant home to me. And I always knew I would come back. Always. The kids called me the American for a while, which then was shortened to Ummy. My grandfather, my mother's father, bought a 4-story house and filled it up with relatives. You know, my mother's sisters and brothers and wives and grandchildren and mothers-in-laws, and you know, one day they hated each other, next they loved each other, then they had parties and they stalked out. I mean, this was pretty lively stuff. So my maternal grandmother, who lived upstairs, she'd tell me stories. One story was how the pretzel was invented. So I wrote a book, Walter the Baker. Walter was also a relative of mine who had a bakery. And so I mixed the two together. Uncle Adam, I made a book about him. And he plastered houses and he had his own business. And I just loved the white apron he always wore. And I was maybe 8 years old. So my aunt made me a white apron, and I went off to work with him. I was so proud. Maybe that's where my storytelling gene comes from. I have an idea. Ooh, flashbulb. Bulb. Idea. I begin to draw my story in here, and it just serves my own purpose. It looks kind of like this. In fact, here I didn't even draw anything in there. I just wrote, they're called thumbnail sketches because they're so small they fit in your thumbnail practically. After I've done the thumbnails, I take 8 sheets, fold it, 4 times 8 is 32 pages. So it's called a dummy, about 10 little rubber ducks. This book is about little rubber ducks that fell off a freighter, and I read this in the newspaper and I made my own story of it. So then after this, I like to talk to my editor about this book, and I do a more elaborate book, so I do the same size as the book is supposed to be, but it's still a rough sketch, but my editor knows how I work. Here's a rubber duck factory. Here the ducks are rolling off the conveyor belt. I even wrote on their conveyor belt. This lady's packing the ducks, 10 rubber ducks per box. Man wheels it out, puts it on his truck. They put it on a boat, and the boat goes out there, and there's a storm, and the box falls off, and here they're floating all over the place. And this is what happened to the first duck. This happened to the second duck, third, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. A strong wind whistles across the sea, whistles across the sea. A big wave lifts up one of the boxes and throws it into the water. The box opens and 10 little rubber ducks fall out. 10 rubber ducks overboard, shouts the captain. 10 rubber ducks overboard. After some time, the storm calms down. The 10 little rubber ducks bob in the big white sea. As far as one can see, only water and sky, water and sky. The 10 little rubber ducks begin to drift apart. The first little rubber duck drifts west. A dolphin jumps over it. The second little rubber duck drifts east. A seal barks at it. The third little rubber duck drifts north. A polar bear growls at it. The fourth little rubber duck drifts south. A flamingo stares at it. Part of my training has to do with book art, making books, illustrating books, selecting typefaces, integrating the picture with the typefaces, the cover, the end sheet, pagination, paper quality. So this has been with me for a long time. Even in advertising, we did booklets and things of that sort. I like books. It is getting dark. The mother duck and her ducklings swim towards their nest. The little rubber duck floats along with them. Good night, says the moon. Quack, says the mother duck. Quack, 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 say the ducklings. Squeak, says the little rubber duck. I used to work in advertising. Part of advertising is the surprise, the shock. You have to be different. I did a series of ads for antihistamine in collage technique. And those illustrations Bill Martin became aware of and asked me to illustrate his brown bear, what do you see? So that was the first time I illustrated a picture book. It was something so special. And later in my life, I found out why I related so much to Bill Martin. He couldn't read until he was 20 years old. And this person taught him to read through rhythm. And the Brown Bear book is this very simple rhythm. It's the heartbeat. Brown bear, what do you see? I see a red bird looking at me. This is the simplest poetry that comes from the heart. Red bird, what do you see? I see a yellow duck looking at me. Yellow duck, what do you see? I see a blue horse looking at me. A deer and its fawn, and all animals and their young. The deer mother will only walk a certain amount ahead of the fawn. If the distance is too great, the fawn cannot follow it. And if the mother deer is too close to the fawn is not going to learn to walk. And that's what I feel about educating children. You have to have that right distance. Now, I also know that each child is different. And I often say, I hate to use the word children because it's a child and a child and a child and a child. I think I do my books for a child, and part of that is me, the child in me. Several years ago, a child wrote to me and said, "You are a good picture writer." And that has stuck with me, and I really like that, and that's what I am, a picture writer. I haven't set out to educate the children of the world. I really haven't. What I do with children is part entertainment, part letting them into my world, part teaching them a little bit. Now, you're going to tell me about your favorite animals. What's your favorite animal?
I like bunnies.
Bunnies? Oh, good. Now, I'll tell you about my favorite animal, okay? And you tell me what I'm doing.
Giraffe.
Giraffe, good. And your favorite animal?
Horse.
A horse, of course.
That's mixed up. So mixed up. Dragons.
A dragon.
I love dragons.
You like dragons.
Dinosaur.
A dinosaur. How is that?
Good.
A person.
A person.
A person. Is a person an animal too?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a mammal.
Yes, very good. Now, you tell me what this is.
A hairy monster.
A
caterpillar.
porcupine. So now we have the cover of a book. What do we need after we have the cover of a book?
We need this
Carle.
toy.
Tell me what we should call it.
The animal mix. The animal mix.
The animal mix?
The mixed up bunny.
Okay, very good. What comes after the title?
The author's
The author. And who is the author?
You.
You did it. You told me what to do.
how
So you are the author. By you. And who did the pictures?
Sounds good.
I did the picture. I get to get my name here. Eric.
Illustrated by Carle.
Eric Carle. You know, a lot of people ask me where ideas come from.
Yeah.
And now you see how it goes, right? This is kind of the beginning where how ideas develop. And that's how this book was made. I had some children who helped me make the picture, dedicated to all the children who have worked with me on this book. So in a way, it's dedicated to you too. Isn't that something? As you know, all my books, or most of my books, you can learn something from. But the learning part I always camouflage heavily. Maybe the best example is my first own book is 1, 2, 3 to the Zoo. And it's a wordless book. I didn't think I could write, so I thought I'd do a wordless book. And it's a very simple book. It's the usual counting book, 1 elephant and 2 giraffes and that type of thing. But I put a little mouse in each picture. You have 2 things going here. You can learn to count, 1, 2, or you can talk about that little mouse. The future mathematician is going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and the future writer is going to make a story about the little mouse. But some children are not going to pick up on the mouse. That's fine. This is, Papa, please get the moon for me. My daughter looked out the window. She was maybe 5, 4 or 5, and she looked out the window. It was nighttime, and the moon was pretty low, and it looked like the moon was in a tree. And she said, Papa, my kids call me Papa. I said, Papa, please get the moon for me. It seemed such a simple task. Just go outside, take the moon out of the tree, and give it to her. It's a love story. I'm telling my daughter I love her. I don't do this all the time, but I sometimes put the names or the initials of my children. Here's a C for Kirsten and an R for Rolf. My wife's name is Bobby, and here I put my wife's name in, Bobby. Well, all books are a little autobiographical. I mean, this guy looks like me too, doesn't he, with a beard? I really don't set out to write books for children. You speak to creative people, whether they're musicians or painters or writers. They write for themselves, they compose for themselves, they make pictures for themselves. So primarily, this is something I would like to do. I had never thought about having a museum. We were in Japan, Bobby and I were in Japan. We saw several picture book museums. Now, some are small and some are big. Some are mom and pop kind of affairs, and some are really big, beautiful things. And I think that gave us the idea. Even today, when I get to the museum, I'm amazed at the size of this building and the richness of it and the beauty of it. We have the Smithsonian Museum, the Metropolitan Museum, Museum of Modern Art. You see modern art in that. And in ours, you see picture book art from all over the world, not just mine. In the lobby, these big windows, the light coming in. I mean, it's the light like in my kindergarten, my first grade in Syracuse. My teacher was Miss Fricky. She discovered my talent and love for drawing, and she called in my mother. And as my mother, being German, of course, expected if the teacher calls in, there's, trouble. That's the only reason the teacher would call you in is trouble. But she walked down, she tells this story, I don't remember this, but she walked down the hall in the school. There were all these pictures drawn by Eric. And she didn't know it was her Eric. And then the teacher told my mother that this little Eric loves to draw and is very talented, that she and my father should always nurture their talent. And they always have. That is terrific. Yeah. When I was in art school, I had this wonderful professor who discovered my talent for big, bold shapes. And he nurtured that, and he told me, that's good, and keep going this way. These kids are putting me out of business, aren't they? This is such a big lobby, and it's all white. I wanted to add color. So, in a way, these paintings here are enlargements of the smaller collage papers I make. I got the material Tyvek. Tyvek you may have seen, they use for houses, and I painted these colors on them. This was a real fun job. I had never worked in such a large format. This I made with a carpet. I take a piece of carpet, I paint on it, and I make a print. This is made with a broom. I just dipped the broom in paint and painted it. And here I used a big brush and I just splashed it. Now, the unifying element in all four panels, I won't let you guess, I'll just tell you, are
the dots.
Building a museum consists of many elements. It's not just one thing. One is that I was getting older, that I accumulated all these originals, that I've been successful, that it's time to give back. In my books, white space is very important. I call white a color. It's a very important color. The empty space in a painting is as important as the covered space. And here in the museum, it's also mainly white, so that the colorful things can pop out at you. This is the original end sheet from the Caterpillar. You may have noticed in the inside title page, up to here about all little balls and reds and blues and greens and yellows. Well, my intention was to make the entire double spread with these little colored balls. But when I got up halfway or a third up, I was pretty tired cutting out things and pasting them down. So I looked on the floor, and these are the leftover papers. I'm a very lazy artist, so instead of throwing those away, I use it for the end sheet. After the very hungry caterpillar, you too can grow up and be beautiful and fly into the world with your talent. The spider, very busy spider, that we must work. We all must work in our lives. It's not only a must, it's also very satisfying. The very quiet cricket. The cricket is looking for a companion and for love. The very lonely firefly. We all have to deal with loneliness. The very clumsy click beetle is about persistence. The click beetle falls on its back and has to learn how to click into the air and fall on his feet. And I also do what I call quote unquote art, and we have 2 samples of it here. And it's also done with my tissue papers. These I just make for fun after I've done my work. I am a commercial artist. And I suspect most people who work in that field deep down would like to paint and do art and have the complete freedom. And that's why I do this, just for my enjoyment. We say man lives not from bread alone. We need music and art. We need books, we need poetry. We need ballets. We need jazz, we need classical music. It's very important to bring pictures and art and paintings to young children.
You're good.